Welcome back to this week's edition of Strictly Biased with yours truly, Will Retherford. I am here at stage 22 with the legend, Greg Mingel, as my co-host, and we are here this week to break down the Week 15 NFL slate. Greg, I thought that the pretenders separated themselves from the contenders this week, and you saw some teams that were hanging on just by a thread lose their opportunity to play in January football. Greg, I've got a lot to say, but first, what would you like to know?
I want to know if you'll accept my apology, because 3 weeks ago I said I hated your top 5 teams most likely to win the Super Bowl. Turned out you were, your list was better than mine at the time. You didn't have Buffalo on it, which was one of the problems. And I still think when you see Josh Allen, you have to have him in the top 5, just having him alone. But your list was a lot better than I thought. The Broncos are better than I thought. So accept my apology.
I appreciate the apology. There's still a lot of football left to be played. Fortunately enough for me, the Broncos have clinched a playoff spot, so we know for sure that they are going to be there. I imagine that they will win the division, but they have a big one next week against Jacksonville, so that's another pretender game where it's like, where do you elevate or downgrade one of those two teams based on what you see? I thought it was an interesting week that you saw Kansas City lose their playoff hopes. You saw Cincinnati lose their playoff hopes, which, I mean, it was a real stretch.
You're right. They did win that division race, as bad as that division is.
The Cowboys all but have one more Eagles win. The Cowboys have eliminated themselves as well. So it was just...
Colts have eliminated themselves.
I think so. I think it's going to be really difficult, especially we're going to need something to happen against Houston. They do have the head-to-head, so that is nice. You'd like to see it come down to Week 18, win and in kind of situation for the Colts. I don't know if we're going to see that, though, to be quite frank with you. After what we saw, we'll talk about the Colts later. But I thought that the NFL slate as a whole, there are some teams, especially Jacksonville and Houston, that like really jumped out and just kind of put it to bad teams in a way that haven't really seen this year. Those are both two teams that have kind of allowed teams to hang around with them a little bit, and they just kind of put foot to neck. And I think that those are two teams that have been rising the last 5 weeks and have, maybe they're not like the elite contenders you think of, but with as wide open as this AFC is, I think anybody that gets in has a shot. I really do. I think it just comes down to who's playing their best ball, and obviously those are two organizations that I think are really happy with where they're at right now.
We'll talk more about the Colts on Wednesday on the Colts Report. There are reports that Anthony Richardson's going to be available for Sunday. The Colts say they're going with Phillip Rivers anyway. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday. For now, I can't wait to hear who your winners and losers are, because it was an interesting week.
Well, I think that it's one of those weeks where it's like, do we want to sit here and waste the time talking about the Chiefs, who really kind of had a foot out the door to begin with? It was going to be really hard for them probably to get in.
They definitely deserve at least an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a bad day in Kansas City Chief history, so they have to. They're a loser with Mahomes' injury.
I think so. They get enough. They've been talked about. If you've turned on the TV and did sports television today, you heard all about the Chiefs. I'm sure of. So we're gonna actually talk about teams that matter.
Chiefs free zone.
Beautiful.
Hey, Will, who are the winners and the losers of the week? Hey, Will, who are the winners and the losers of the week?
Greg, let's jump right in. I thought the Patriots were a loser this week. I have them on the list because they dropped the opportunity to really contend for that number one seed now. The Broncos had the head-to-head based on AFC record and common opponents to begin with, and I think now having a game down doesn't look great. I also thought that you saw, while they contended, and you saw how good of a team they were. They were up 21-0. You text me, wow. I hadn't been watching the game.
I texted you, what the F
is
going on in Fox?
And then all of a sudden, it's just like Josh Allen got hot and it didn't matter. And I think that's something that this Patriots team might struggle with in this playoffs is if somebody just gets going. They didn't really have an answer in that second half for what Josh Allen did. They did, but it was too late. You know, the Henderson touchdown, but it was just like you're giving the ball right back to Josh Allen. He's going to score. So are you gonna have enough at the end to do so? I didn't think that. I still kind of think they're pretenders. I think they're good, better than even I thought, and I had them in the playoffs from the whole get-go, but I don't think that they're...
I think if they win that division, they're contenders in the AFC. If they don't.
They also let the Bills get back into that division conversation, and I'm not sure if that's a team that is going in on the road, and I love them winning games on the road. I don't think so. I think that if they play at home, yeah, I think they could potentially win a game, but I don't see it.
Whoever wins that division is serious, and whoever doesn't has to go on the road for playoff games is going to struggle. Whoever wins that division is a big deal.
The Panthers were a big loser, too. They had the opportunity to go win a game in New Orleans against a bad opponent and take a game lead on the division, and they still have to play each other 2 more times. So it's like they really had a chance to put themselves in the driver's seat, and they just go and lose a game. It's not like they played horrible. They just didn't play good enough to win, and they just let New Orleans hang around at home, and I'm starting to believe that Tyler Shuck is a little better than what we thought he was. I'm not saying he's some elite quarterback, but like he's definitely a capable NFL quarterback, I think, at this point.
And I'm starting to believe that Kellen Moore is a good one.
I thought that the way they hung in games early in the year, since that he had good game plans, they just didn't really have the guys to go win games when they needed to. I think Chris Olave is number one. I think that based on the way this team's progressed throughout the year, you consider bringing him back. I thought he was a guy that could get traded at the deadline and get you some valuable picks back with how good he had played. And he's kind of continued that. They've got Devon Vele. They gave up some picks to get him in the offseason from Denver, and everybody kind of scratched their head of, well, he doesn't really seem to be that involved with the offense. But with Rashid Shaheed getting traded to Seattle, you see him get involved more. You've seen Jawan Johnson continue to kind of be a safety valve and tight end for Shuck. I don't know what their outlook is. I don't think they're a playoff team even next year, but they're not bad.
I'm starting to think that's a franchise on the rise.
Injuries have been the issue the whole time, and it's like he's finally healthy and he's performing. He's the number one. He's open a lot.
He's a good one.
I think he is a good one. He continues that.
What is an Ohio?
Greg, I saw the Lions as a loser as well. They're out of the playoff picture right now. They're 8-6. I'm not sure I would have thought that was really kind of where they were going to be at this point of the year. I think we both had our reservations of them running it back and being 15-2 because they had lost both their coordinators. It just is difficult to maintain that level of success. Right. They went in there, and I thought, I was almost texting you, hey, look at the Lions. Going to win a game in L.A., like, the Lions might be a Super Bowl favorite now. And then the second half, they just struggled. That third quarter was rough, and they just kind of let the Rams get in it. The Rams ended up taking the game over and winning. I thought that the Lions didn't really have an answer for Stafford even after the interception the entire game. I mean, he threw still for 330 when it was all said and done, a couple touchdowns. I do think that the Rams might be an honorable mention loser with Devontae Adams going down with that hamstring injury, especially down the stretch where on Thursday Night Football, they're going to play Seattle for number 1 seed and the division leader.
He was such a difference maker for that.
Their goal line play was basically either fade or slant with Devontae Adams, and Matthew Stafford's going to hit him with whatever. This Lions team is just, their offense looks great. Defensively, I have too many reservations, I think, at this point to say that they are legit Super Bowl contenders. I think that on paper right now, after Micah Parsons' injury with the Packers, they're the third best team in the NFC in terms of roster construction. It wouldn't be the craziest thing if they got in that they could potentially win a couple games on the road. They've done it before and get to the Super Bowl. Greg, this is a team that we've had on here a lot that we don't want to have on here, but they deserve it. The Colts are a massive loser this week because now they need help, and they could have at least controlled somewhat of their destiny if they win that game in Seattle. They had that game won, and they just didn't deliver down the end, and that's been the trademark of the Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen era, is teams just not being able to play winning football when it mattered the most. They couldn't get to stop there. They couldn't keep the Seahawks out of field goal range, and now they are on the outside looking, kind of where they've been the last 3 weeks, but it's like they're really on the outside looking, and now they need...
Plus, the next 3 weeks look bleak.
They do. I don't think that Phillip Rivers left you a whole lot to be desired based on his performance on Sunday. All right, Greg, biggest loser of the week. Michelle, I hope you're going to listen to this. The Packers were a massive loser this week, not because they're 9-4-1, not because they didn't go on the road and contend with the AFC's best. They lost their best player, and now I don't think they have any shot of winning the Super Bowl at all. I don't know if they win a playoff game, to be quite honest with you, because I think Micah Parsons is that big of a game changer for them.
They traded their other best players for Micah Parsons.
The wide receiver room by committee is awesome. I'm glad they've got 18 receivers that are all
very Colts-like
wide receiver twos for the most part. I think the Colts wide receiver room is better. Regardless, the Packers, I don't know if they'll make playoffs. They still have to play the Lions one more time.
Chance. Gonna come down with Lions and Packers, I think.
I think so. I think that's the last playoff spot. Unless San Francisco really sputters their tires here at the end. I don't know. They still have to play Seattle. They still have to play the Colts. They drop a couple. They're at 10 wins right now. I think it's a race to 10 wins, and 11's the doozy. There's a situation where the Bears, if they lose out, are the odd team out. Just with the schedule, the way it's going to shake out, I think these teams are all going to have to play each other. In some capacity, some combination, they always have it set up to where you play a divisional opponent. Week 18 is standard for the NFL, so I don't know. Still, that division, there's 3 teams I think that could win. I think the Lions have probably made it to where wild card's their best shot, but they could still win the division. I mean, they're only, a game and a half down? We'll see. It's interesting, but it's the way it goes. Greg, I thought the Bears were a winner. Why? Because they're 10-4, and they have, I think, solidified a playoff spot with 3 weeks left. Unless they lose out, I think they're in. 11 wins gets you in. I think in both fields, 11 wins, you're safe. They just have to get there. They got to win 1 out of 3 to, I think, lock themselves into a playoff spot. I see that probably happening with just the way the season has gone for them. They've competed well. They've played well against teams they needed to, and this week was no different. 31-3 victory over the Browns. You're happy with that. They've continued to, I think, exceed expectation. And I think Ben Johnson's culture has really set in. Caleb Williams has figured it out, I think, for the most part, in terms of being able to lead his team to victory. He's not an accurate passer, but they've won 10 games in spite of it. They've continued to play well. Big win for them. Take care of the teams you need to take care of, and you'll find a way to make it in the playoffs.
Big Bears-Packers game coming up.
It is huge. The Chargers were a big winner because they're, I think, at this point, too, it's going to be really difficult for them. The Colts kind of needed the Chargers to lose these 2 games and kind of keep the Colts have a chance in with that last team, especially a team they have the head-to-head over. That's not happened. The Chargers have lucked out in having Mahomes blow his knee out there on that final drive. It kind of looked like the Chiefs were going to march down the field to kick a field goal to go to overtime, and anything can happen. They get a big one in overtime against the Eagles last week. So you said it, John Harbaugh, coaching masterclass. They're doing just enough to win. They're not doing anything more. They're not playing great. They're just kind of grinding wins out.
Piecing things together with all the injuries.
In spite of everything that's happened with their offensive line, and Justin Herbert continues to figure it out. They're not a team on the rise. They're not really a team on the decline. I think they're just kind of right there in the middle. This isn't a Super Bowl winning team, just with the injury, but they're good enough to get there. Greg, I thought the Rams were a big winner because they get that win at home against Detroit, and they continue to hold pace for the number 1 seed. They have a huge matchup on Thursday Night Football against Seattle. This begs the question. I like that Thursday Night Football gets these good games. This one feels like it shouldn't be on Thursday Night Football. Like this doesn't. Really this does. Feels like one that shouldn't be done on short rest. It shouldn't be done on a short game plan. It should be on Sunday Night Football and pick another game.
We're so late in the season. We're at the point where we're having Saturday NFL games. let's just stop with the Thursday games this late in the year. The games are too valuable for 3 days of prep.
I tend to agree with that. You know, when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have said that, but as an older NFL fan, you can tell that these Thursday games are rushed. They're not put together very well.
I would have had the Buccaneers on your loser list, but it's a Thursday game. It's hard to tell. Plus, they're not going to lose the division based just on.
I couldn't. If the Panthers win, the Bucs are losers, but the Bucs still have the division,
right?
And they control their destiny now.
It's just Thursday nights, it's hard to tell.
It's a toss-up. It eliminates, I think, a lot of the matchup advantage that some teams have because the game plan's just simpler. It's really hard to install with only 2 days, basically of work prep work. This is just one that I don't know. I don't like it a lot because this is one that deserves the time to be an elite game at an elite time slot for the division and potential number 1 seed. Huge stakes in this one. I mean, the difference between 1 seed and 5 seed is massive. I'm glad we're on the same page.
I don't think it's as big in the NFC as it is in the AFC because the potential is going to Foxborough, Buffalo, or Denver or Baltimore. I don't think going to Los Angeles is as scary. I don't think even going to Seattle is as, because of the weather factor. I think in the AFC it's huge. In the NFC, I think we're going to see a little more, Detroit winning on the road or a Green Bay winning a game on the road. I think, we're going to see some road wins in the NFC more than we are in the AFC, I think.
Well, my number 2 is a road win, and that's the Buffalo Bills, who are a big winner. They get the opportunity to continue to play for the division. They lose, it's over, really, for the most part. They're staring down the 7th seed. They're out of the playoffs. And that's how big of a deal this was for them. I still think there's too many weaknesses. I get the Josh Allen reasoning. Like, I'm aware of that because of how good he's been in the postseason. I'm worried in a shootout, which is what I think this defense is going to be playing in most of the time in these playoff games. Anything can happen.
Down on Josh Allen and Bo Nix and give me Josh Allen every.
I would have maybe said that 3 weeks ago, but boy, he looked awfully good. He played the best game of his career. And he's played the best games of his career the last 4 weeks. He's getting better. The numbers may not, necessarily reflect how good he's been for that team. They're just,
he's been so good.
It's the conversation of everybody saying, oh, the Broncos are winning in spite of Bo Nix. And it's like, well, every time Bo Nix has had the chance to go win the game, he's done it. So how are you winning in spite of him? There have been multiple games we've watched where it's like the defense kind of shits the bed at the end of the game, and it's like, hey, got to have a quarterback go get one for us. And he's done that. Is he Josh Allen? No, he's not Josh Allen. Nobody is in that field of elite competitor, elite quarterback. I'm well aware of that. But the difference is that margin is growing closer. And I think week by week, it's who has the ball last. It's going to be one of the who has the ball last, who has the chance to go win it. I don't know. I just am worried that defense isn't going to hold serve.
Give me Josh Allen.
Well, it's funny that we mentioned this because the Broncos are the number 1 winner, and they take control of the number 1 seed in the conference. They get a huge win against the Packers. They were down 9 points in the fourth quarter. They come back and win it. It's just something about this team that you just can't put a pulse on. And a text thread with Michelle talking about the Packers last night during Sunday Night Football, and it's like we look for every reason to say, well, this team doesn't belong, this team isn't good enough, this, that, and the other. They're 12-2. They're clearly good enough to belong. They've clearly found the formula to win football games, regardless of what it looks like.
They're a good football team.
It felt like last year when the Chiefs were winning all those one-score games, it felt like fool's gold. It was always like a call here or a benefit of a play here that the Chiefs were getting. It's like the Broncos aren't really getting that. They're just winning these games. Say what you want about the Packers. Here's what I'll tell you. That fourth quarter came down to who the better quarterback was, and Bo Nix was better than Jordan Love.
Bo Nix is better than Jordan Love right now.
And that's what it came down to. Jordan Love had a chance to go win the game. What's he do? He throws 2 picks in the fourth quarter. Backbreaker. And it's like that's an element of his game that he's just always going to have. Whether Packers fans want to admit it And it's the difference between them being the 2 seed and 1 seed and them being the 7 seed, which is where they're sitting at right now. I've been high on the Broncos all year. That's a prediction I'm going to get right with them winning the division. Feel pretty good about it. Now they have. I'm really surprised that Jacksonville-Denver game is not Sunday Night Football. That got flexed because that's Jacksonville wins that game. Now they're right there in the number 1 seed conversation too, coming out of complete left field. Didn't see that coming at all.
I thought when they collapsed against Houston, that was it.
How could you not? That was one of the worst collapses we've seen in NFL history. It's like, here we are, 8-4. Haven't lost a game since that, and
I haven't picked them since that too, because I swore that if they lost that game, I'd never pick them again.
You did, and it.
Houston too. Houston's a big winner too.
They're a huge winner. I didn't put them there because I think that they were going to win that game.
Sure,
but they're holding serve.
Yes.
Everybody everybody says, okay, well, what's wrong with the Colts? Most years, 8-6, you're in a playoff spot right now. I would say that 75% of years, 8-6 at this moment, you're at least a playoff team. You're maybe the 6 or 7 seed, but you're at least a playoff team. It's like, what's the Colts' problem been? The Colts' problem is they've been losing every game, and everyone else in the conference has been winning every game. And it's a tough break, but hey, you got to go out and win the games that you have in front of you, and the Colts haven't done that.
And well, who are the 5 teams most likely to win Super Bowl 60 in the play?
Greg, I think you're going to love this list. I think you're going to adore this list. There's going to be one team you're going to tell me is too low.
Well, there are only about 5 left.
I think there's 5. I think that's right. My 5th is the Texans because I think their defense is just that good, and if their offense is going to be able to dominate the middle of the field they did in that Arizona game, they're going to be awfully hard
They're
to
not
beat.
going to be able to like they did in the Arizona.
I agree with that. But defense travels, and I think they're a kind of team that on the road,
No doubt.
they can win games because their defense is just that good.
Not a team they can't.
Especially not in that AFC. They've beaten the Bills. They've beaten the Jags once. They have not played the Patriots. They got beat in a tough one against Denver, but still. They get to play the Chargers. That's a big game for them. But this team that defense is just awfully incredible.
No doubt a contender.
A team that moved down, but is still on the list. I think the Seahawks are clearly the 1B to the Rams 1A.
So we're having some doubts about Sam Darnold. He's just not very good. He's okay. He's good against bad defenses. He's just not very good.
The Colts showed the formula how to beat the Seahawks. Keep them off the field. Don't break in the red zone. Don't get beat over the top, basically. It's kind of what has happened.
Let your one good receiver beat you.
Yeah. I still had over 100 yards against the Colts, but it's like you wouldn't know that. If you watched the game, you wouldn't be like, oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba's got 120 yards.
It seemed like they contained him.
They did a good job of containing everybody. I don't know. That team's not good enough to, I think, win the Super Bowl, especially if they play the Rams. I think they're good enough to get to the NFC Championship, though. Even having to go play on the road, they're good on the road. Sam Darnold is a guy that I thought he'd give the Colts a win, and he almost did. They still deserve to be on this list. Number 3 is the Bills.
Too low. Only because of Josh Allen. I understand your question.
We're on the same list. We're on the same playing field. And I guess I'll just say my 2 is the Broncos. Because I think if they played, unlike you, I think you'd have them the other way around. I still think the Broncos win that game.
1.
I don't think they're number 1 because I think the Rams are just that good. And I think the Rams have... I still do. They scored 41 points on the Lions. Sure, they gave up, but they won a shootout. And sometimes you just have to play football like that. Their defense is still awfully good. They still have Jared Verse, who is a game wrecker. I just trust Matt Stafford when it matters the most. I think that he's an awfully great quarterback. Maybe you disagree with me because of Josh Allen, the Bills. I just think there's too many teams in the AFC that can beat the Bills. And I think there's only one team in the NFC that can beat the Rams in the postseason. So I think that's why I have them above the Bills.
I think there are 2 in the NFC North alone that could beat them.
The Bill, there's a lot of 50-50s in the AFC where I don't know if it's more than maybe 55-45.
I think you're right. The Devontae Adams injury changes a lot.
He's going to be back by the postseason, would be my guess.
And the team you left off, the team that's starting to me look a little scary is the Eagles. They're starting to look a little scary to me. And Jalen Carter might be the best player in the NFL who doesn't handle.
That Raiders team's so bad. I just can't put enough stock into that one singular game. There's just something. There's a feeling about that team that just feels off. And
don't give them momentum is all I'm saying.
I think you're absolutely right.
That good.
I think you're absolutely right. For record keeping, I would like to say that my first team out was the Patriots. My second team out is Jacksonville. My third team out's the Eagles.
Eagles at Buffalo on Saturday, December 28th.
Big one.
To that one.
Absolutely.
Final thoughts.
I think each week we've kind of been searching for answers in terms of what these teams are and trying to decipher and analyze a team in this game versus a team in this game. And I think we finally got to the point where we know kind of who's really good and who's okay. To me, the Colts story is just disappointing from the standpoint of being 7-1, of having it all out in front of you, being the number one seed. And it's like, here we are at 8-6, and it's just all morale's lost. And we talked about it a little bit before. They were in the 5 losers, but they're going to have to make a tough decision, I think, at some point, whether they want to keep the Phil Rivers story nice and sweet or go try to play winning football. Because what we saw on Sunday is not indicative of winning football. He's not scoring 20 points a game. Why do it? Riley Leonard didn't play horrible in Jacksonville. I can't wrap my head around why this is the decision.
I said the word earlier, desperation.
And everybody said, the conversation of the teams are, don't have backup quarterbacks that can have the computing and processing power that a guy like Phillip Rivers has. And that's true. But, why can't Phillip Rivers help Riley Leonard? Hey, this is what you see, this is what we're checking to, or this is what we think we should do in this, sort of defensive setup. And, you've got to find the combination of having Phillip Rivers' computing power with a guy that can actually deliver the ball and play winning football at the quarterback position. And so far, what we saw in Seattle isn't indicative of that. And now San Francisco's got a week of tape on them. They now have the key. There was still the wild card of what will Phillip Rivers look like at 44 years old? What is he going to be? We know now. And other teams now do too, and you're going to be able to game plan against that. I thought the Colts could surprise Seattle because of the element of not knowing what Phil Rivers after 5 years looked like. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that if Phillip Rivers plays this Monday, the Colts are beating the 49ers. I just don't think so.
We'll talk about that more later this week. Will, thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. You're going to hear a bunch of excuses on why the coaching staff's horrible and Chris Ballard sucks. They're not who lost Sunday. Let's remember that. That as bad as they've been, the players sought to go win football games. They failed to do so.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product by TG Media. I love Susie.